sounds ranging from euphorically danceable guitar lines to drops reminiscent of Optimus Prime kicking a whale, the Naturals are inarguably one of the best bands in Bristol.
We never think, like, what do we sound like?
Yeah.
You know, because people are pretty comfortable telling us. And 9 times out of 10, it's like, man, it's like this thing. We're falling down the stairs, like kaleidoscopic. What?
That's
You know
good.
what I
That's
mean?
better than being like, oh, you sound like We Are Scientists or something.
Yeah. This is the Naturals' first album launch, but they've been together almost 12 years. Serial gig goer and local music hero Big Jeff saw these guys for the first time when they were about 15. I was kind of interested in just imagining what music you started out playing.
It's like indie pop, you know, like we were 12, so we were into like, you know, what were the bands of the day then? Like Block Party were just getting really big. So we all bought the first Block Party album on the same day. Sat on the bus, we were like, oh, yours is slightly whiter than mine.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we got it signed, didn't we? We all queued up and met them.
It's like 2005 Indie Boys, and then we just discovered things like shoegaze.
Yeah.
And that was a nice 7 years out of our life. And then we smoked some weed, listened to electronic music, and now we're here.
Yeah,
That's the short version.
I think at that point, certainly, like when we started, it was about like being in a band because you weren't like a rugby player, or like, you know what I mean, like, and then, just, I think that's just like a ritual of being a teenager. Yeah, I don't know. I can't never think about
Series on innovative and experimental music being produced in Bristol. This is the last episode, fittingly for a few reasons. First of all, it's something of a crowning achievement for Howling Owl. Earlier today, Joe and Adrian posted a picture from 4 years ago where they emailed the Naturals, having just set up, asking if they could play at one of their shows. It's brought together everyone that we've shown you in this series. Teas Hum were in the crowd with me. Oliver Wilde produced the album and recorded it with Dom Mitchinson from Velcro Hooks. Giant Swan was created basically to make the Naturals better. I'm Alistair Shuttleworth. Thank you very much for watching our series, and this is the Naturals. I can imagine like certain sounds on that record would have been a lot easier to get if you just used a synth. Like, you know, did you like deliberately restrict yourself from doing that, or is that just something that came about by itself?
Deliberately, I suppose. Like, it was kind of like a mantra for a while, like no synths, because we've never used them.
We didn't have a particular sound in mind, then use a synthesizer because it's easiest to make it. The sounds that we came about were from playing our instruments, and we wouldn't have got there, I think, if it wasn't for playing our instruments. So it's kind of got to a stage where, yeah, although a lot of them sound like they could be synthesizers, we can't take pride in the fact they're not, and we deliberately, you know, are not using synthesizers. So it's great when we get these reviews being like, oh yeah, like, yeah, electronics and the synths are good. That's kind of like our sort of joke on them. Really. It's like, well, if you believe it, you should listen to more music.
For the record, is that it's like these synthetic sounds just kind of almost placated because they are played with instruments, and do it because it's how we, I suppose, listen to music in a way. Like, we kind of listen with it like, oh, that's a nice effect, and then I don't know, yeah, I'm glad it never really turned into like gear porn, you know, like we've got to, like, you know, we've got to get this specific like, thing for the job. Like, we're quite rudimentary with it. Yeah, we use a lot of cheap effects. I mean, there are some pretty, like, you know, unique things that we're proud of, but it's only through, like, you know, taking inspiration from, like, rudimentary, like, you know, homemade dub sirens. Like, we have a friend who has a homemade dub siren, and, like, it's you know, just watching the way that he uses that and builds it, and, like, it's really inspiring.
Experimental.
It's just kind of what works for us, and what works for us often ends up sounding quite experimental, because as Harry was saying earlier, we come at it from a lot of different angles individually, musically. So what we end up liking ends up sounding really, often experimental, but it's not sort of the aim going in. We don't sort of, you know, we don't come up with something and just go, oh no, it needs to sound really experimental. It's not kind of a consciously important thing. It's just something that results of the method of doing it.
When something sounds experimental because you like haven't heard it like that before, and then it goes back to just being able to stop the flow and be like, you need to do that again. like if you can do it again, and then it gets embellished, and I think by the end of it doesn't sound experimental to us because it's like it's the way we play. Like one thing that's experimental for us would be like playing acoustically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
the things that I loved about this record, like you play with structure, like you're constantly sort of diving into something like new, where I can imagine other bands would have just made it into 2 songs, like, you know, so like decide to take all those kind of cool like nuggets and make them into one like
a big
sick
nugget.
song. Yeah, like a large nugget. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. Is that something that you set out to do when you start these songs?
So much of it just comes out of jamming, basically. Like we set up all our stuff and before we like practice the set or whatever, we'll just kind of jam some ideas. And so many of the songs just end up coming from that we don't often think too much about a structure of it until it's in a semi-naturally finished form.
I woke this morning, not within my drawing, come from my
something and then someone else in the room taking it upon themselves almost to say stop, that's really good, like focus on that, and yeah, I mean Cold People, like
it really is 2 songs.
Yeah, that was
shit.
Yeah,
that's probably why there's only 8 songs on the album. We've just taken 30 of them and crushed them down the table.
In terms of structure and stuff, because a lot of things like structure are quite, again, like synonymous with certain genres in the same way that you've got like musical instruments that you associate with a kind of genre. So I think for us, like having like quite quite different or interesting structures, it kind of, again, it breaks that boundary and it kind of hopefully links a few things together. Because we could easily write a sort of techno song where we just have that thing where it just goes on for ages and then we introduce like a snare and then a kick drum or whatever. But I mean, we want to take elements of that and then put them within smaller parts of songs, in the same way that with structure song maybe a bit more conventionally kind of rock, verse, chorus, whatever, but the sounds we'd be using wouldn't complement that. So I think it's about trying to find a nice middle ground between all of that and hopefully like create something new.
I think that ultimately comes from like a kind of split between wanting to antagonize a listener and also like, you know, like impulsively, you know, take them with you. We were just at band practice and I was like, oh, I'm going to go for a wee, and I went and had a wee and I could hear Kai and Fee doing the they were just doing that over and over again. I was weeing like, I hope they keep doing this by the time I finish my wee so I can then be like, you got to keep doing that, that's really cool.
mean, we saw the Naturals when we were still living in Barnstaple, and that's it. When we used to drive up, and they were playing. We went to go and see Twilight Sad and Errors at the Fleece, and then we got there early because it was like, well, let's go and see a local band, see what the support's like, and then it was the Naturals, and we were just totally blown away. It made us feel really bad about our own band, and just thought, like, these kids are incredible. We didn't even realise how young they were. We thought they were about our age.
We were floundering before Howling Owl came along. Like, we didn't know who we were as a band, because we'd gotten to this point, and it was, that would have been the time to be like, okay, like, we did this for a bit and it was fun, let's just like go to uni now or get jobs or whatever.
As a thing, like, sort of 3-4 years on, to be finally putting that album out, and we've been ready to put that album out for 2 years now, and so have they. It's become this huge thing.
We're like stoked just
humbled
to be part of it. Yeah, like, these are our friends, and the fact that they do us the pleasure of like uplifting us for something that we do, like, that's a trip, and it's almost completely out of our hands because we trip just as hard on the stuff they do. And yeah, like, it's really, I mean, it's kind of crazy to talk about it in this way, but like, Howling Owl is definitely something that doesn't want anything from you other than like your enjoyment and your cooperation, in terms of like it being a cooperative. They're not like in it for any other reason other than to promote what they like, and that's, when you're dealing with just like people's tastes, like, they're pretty single-minded in what they want to do. So to be kind of taken along with that, I do remember there being a kind of turning point where it's like, yeah, shit, we're part of this. Like, we are a part of this in whatever way. And that's meant, like, you're just that much happy to just go and help out at a night, or like go on the road with a band and help them out for a couple of shows, even if you're not playing or like anything. Yeah, it's our pleasure really to be part of the group.
I wanted to ask about the lyrics, because like, people talk about these like sort of comfort zones, like certain pet areas where they draw a lot from. Spectres is obviously kind of like nightmarish and the lyrics on Hive, it's a bit more mysterious, like where you get the ideas from, I guess.
Yeah.
So what does inspire like these lyrics?
I guess it's like, I mean, with Hive, it became a project, like a writing project. So lyrically, like, the album does tell a story of like kind of consciousness. So like becoming aware of yourself, and then there were certain like phrases that I wanted to keep like reinterpreting as kind of almost as like a solid. Talk about like a great wall, and it's this idea of there being like, that kind of subconscious like block that people, like you go through your life and you experience things and they affect you, and it can lead to like an interest in satire, or an interest in depression, or not an interest in depression, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Something to kind of base your experience on, and I found that really difficult because I don't really think anything I say is like worth listening to, essentially. Not in a self-deprecating way, but it's like it's as important and as kind of nascent as everyone else. So I wanted to write about like the experience of writing the album.
You repeat the line, but the opening line from the album,
Yeah.
two-ish, so it was when the time comes, take as many of them with you as you can.
Yeah.
Or, like, what did that mean, or like, what was that like?
That came from a conversation I was having with a friend of mine. We were talking about car bombs and like how scary they are,
Yeah.
and how like that kind of you know, there's like a litany of things to be afraid of these days, and like cars are now one of them, you know.
Yeah.
And my friend said, like, you know, well, when the time comes and it's, you know, it's your time, like that might be the car to do it. And I was like, man, that's fucked up. Like, thinking about that one day and just thought it was kind of a, you know, quite an ultimative, like, when the time comes, just take as many of them with you. And I think that can also be applied to, like, you know, when the time comes to, like, play your thing or, like, make something happen to someone musically, or, like, yeah, man, take as many people with you as you can, and, like, try and promote something which isn't necessarily, like, destructive. And because I think a lot of that rhetoric and language is often used to describe, like, negative things, that when the time comes, like, and that was just the basis we were talking about it, from this negative place into this positive place.
That was really interesting. I didn't know a lot of that sort of stuff.
We don't really talk about that. Really.
Right with this series, what would you like people to take away from it?
Well, just as that there's a hell of a lot going on here, and from when we've started to now, we still think that Bristol doesn't get as much kind of attention as it should. It's not that kind of like, look at us, we're so good. It's that kind of, it doesn't get the respect it deserves. It's not really a braggy place, is it?
No, it's almost nice that it's kind of happening. No matter what, it's always going to have this like amazing creative scene, and it's almost kind of nice that, you know, it's not getting blown into, you know, oblivion with loads of money suddenly getting pumped into bands that, you know, are going to do really weird stuff with it or whatever. But it would be nice to shake off the, you know, every interview ever for Spectres and some for Howling Owl as well is just like, so what is trip hop? We're a noise band. We're nothing to do with that. It'd be nice to just not to have an interview that hasn't had that question. Mm-hmm. Which this is one.